Okay.
Can I have a motion to resume public session? Have a motion? Dr. Richards? Ms. Davis? All in favor? The vote is unanimous. We're now back in public session. We apologize for the slight delay. We are having technical difficulties. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Do we have any agenda changes?
Yes, we have agenda changes in personnel.
Thank you. Just wanted to take a couple minutes to welcome everybody here tonight. We're reaching that time of year where things can get a little stressful. We're past all the holiday seasons, we're past midterms and regions, and starting to get ourselves settled into the second half of the school year, which can sometimes lead to tiredness and frustrations, and then the good things of seeing people work together and start new activities. We spent some time this weekend. Several of us went to the Monroe County School Board Legislative Breakfast, which is always a very enlightening and educational experience. You get a chance to see people from all different districts in our region, and you get a chance to meet with and speak with different elected officials throughout our state, and to share some of the advocacy that public schools are looking for to support our students and our families. And it's very helpful to hear those conversations and really learn and grow. So thank you for that opportunity. Moving on to points of interest. Do we have any points of interest? Ms. Kais?
It's an upcoming point of interest. Friday night is the Java Jazz featuring the jazz bands across the district. Plus we have a couple outside guests and the show choir performing. It's a great fundraiser for our band kids, jazz band kids. We're going to Nashville in April. And also with the music department, it looks like the Tryon has a music game show coming up. It says February 7th. I believe it's tomorrow. But I thought it was a Thursday, so I'm a little confused on that. Is it tomorrow? Tomorrow. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., $2 per student and adult, or $3 per adult. Sounds like it's going to be a really fun.
Yeah, it sounds entertaining. Thank you. Any other points of interest? Ms. Davis?
So every chance I get to talk about the Gates Childlight cheer teams, I will. So they had a very exciting week. Last Thursday night, they hosted their annual competition, which is their only fundraiser for the year. Excellent turnout, bigger, grows every year. We had 41 teams this year. But especially want to thank all the safety, security staff, facilities. Everyone did a great job keeping things running smoothly to make it a successful night that ended on time. So that was big. And then Sunday, the modified and JV teams, who don't always get recognition because everyone's always overshadowed by varsity, who gets all the media focus and everything. But the modified and JV teams at their competition on Sunday won first place in their division and grand champions overall for their levels. And thanks to Chief Long, got a police and fire escort back to the building from the highway, which was very special for them. So, again, something really special to celebrate them because, the younger teams in the schools don't always get that recognition. So that's all.
Thank you. Any other points of interest? Okay, reported meetings. Mr. Moscato?
Follow up on our meeting with the legislators. We discussed the reaction to the governor's budget, and there wasn't any support, especially to the issue of districts that are losing money under her proposal. So we're hoping we get a budget by April 1st, but at the rate they're going, it looks doubtful. So we'll have to wait and see. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other meetings? Okay, that moves us forward to visitor comments. The Gates Chili Central School District Board of Education invites public comment at this time. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. We ask that individuals state their name and address prior to comments and utilize the podium and microphone to address the board. Although the board will not respond directly to individual comments at this time, items brought to the attention of the board may be taken under consideration for future response or action. In order to comply with the laws related to confidentiality, We ask that issues related to specific school district personnel or students be brought to the attention of the superintendent of schools privately. The board reserves the right to terminate a speaker's comments if his or her comments are in excess of 3 minutes, are repetitive, or are not appropriate for discussion in an open public forum. We have one public comment tonight, Mr. Scott Bubo. Yeah, thank you, sir.
There you go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. It's been a while since I've seen you all. I lost last April and cried for about 15 minutes and I got over it. I've been watching from afar. My daughter, who was the reason I ran the last time, started at the middle school this year and was about a month into being a 6th grader, and then a horrible accident happened. She was running to gym, she fell, and she got a very severe concussion. And we've been dealing with that since November. I just actually wanted to come and give kudos to the middle school staff. They have been fantastic, utterly fantastic. My wife and I were terrified that she would be falling behind or that she'd be missing out on things. Her team, the nursing staff, and the entire administrative staff have been behind her, sending her good, get well notes while she was not allowed to come back to school, which was killing her because she missed her friends and she was missing out on first year middle school, which is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But she's healthy now. We're doing a lot better. We're having a lot more good days than bad days. She's almost back to full strength. She's almost back to full clearance. But we wanted to at least, I specifically, my wife couldn't come tonight, but I wanted to come my first night off and just be appreciative and thankful to a couple of people. Mrs. Fowler, Mrs. Donovan, the nursing staff, the entire Amherst community, Mrs. Meyer, Mr. and Mrs. LeClaire, Mrs. Canale, Mrs. Bay, Mrs. Muscarella, Ms. Bailey, Mrs. Strong, and Mrs. Kakuzi, and Dr. Buckshaw, Mrs. Dossier, and the entire office staff, who have been really good, because if you have a concussion with a little kid, they require quite a bit of medical help. I was surprised about how much we needed. We have appointments upon appointments, and we've been in and out of there so many times over the last month and a half that we're all on first name basis at this point. We've gotten to know each other really fast. But I just wanted to, I know you guys don't hear good news and compliments from the community that much. I watch every month, at least once or twice a month when you guys are streaming these. So yes, people are actually watching these things. But I just wanted to come tonight and at least express on behalf of my family, very deep appreciation for everything they've done for her to first, not only make sure she's keeping her spirits up, but the movements we made since going back to school to get her back up to speed. And now she's fully up to speed and she's pretty much back to where she is at the head of the class. And we have been very appreciative. Several afternoons, several after school visits, a couple meetings with the teachers. Everybody's been open and helpful, and we really appreciate it. So just wanted to come and give a little good news for once, especially considering, like someone said, this is the rough time of year. So it'd be nice to start off on a positive note. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We also are very happy to hear that she's doing better.
I'm so happy.
Thank you. All right, that moves us forward to our reports section. So first we have our mid-year update.
All right. Okay. Originally, I wanted to call this the mid-year super duper update, but Eva changed it to mid-year update. So
That's
here
fair.
we are, halfway through the year. Want to update everybody on how we're doing towards our 2 main goals as a district. And again, our 2 goals being foster belonging through equitable access to culturally responsive and restorative practices that support the wellness of our community, and maximize academic achievement for each student through access to rigorous instructional practices supported by data-driven insights and ongoing progress. So where are we as of February 2024? Talk about our first goal, fostering belonging. We're helping staff identify and disrupt microaggressions through training. We're strengthening our connections between our community feeder programs to keep students engaged childhood. authentically spotlighting the diversity within our school community in multiple ways. We're engaging students and families in events that build pride and togetherness at each of our buildings. And we're building community pride through upgrades to our district facilities and our new signage. Providing equitable access. We are one of the districts that qualified for serving free meals in all Gates Charlie cafeterias. And it's been an overwhelming success, and the appreciation we hear from families on a regular basis is excellent. We offered it in another 2 languages in new student registration forms to access members of our community as they come in. We're providing school supplies for all our students K through 5 this year. We organize our organizational purchasing procedures to provide more resources to more classrooms. And enhanced programming opportunities thanks to our district's next capital project. And then a unique thing that we do here in our district is helping our students earn waivers of up to $600 for equipment repair costs that may occur using our district devices. With our culturally responsive restorative practices, we're using restorative practices to address harm between colleagues and establishing affinity groups for staff to voice feelings and seek support. We're offering ongoing culturally responsive sustaining education training for nearly 200 staff members thus far, and will continue to do so. Collaboratively reviewing and updating our code of conduct currently with our committee, with stakeholders from our community and buildings. And facilitating and providing practical strategies to implement restorative practices at the classroom and building level. As far as wellness, we are working under Mr. Zhang's leadership to implement community schools, our first school being Neil Armstrong, deliver critical services to students and their families, and will expand as the years go on. We're improving mental health supports for students through professional learning through the URMC's SHAPE program. We're creating a trauma-conscious environment by providing staff with TCI training or therapeutic crisis intervention. And we're aligning practices related to the elementary health program under our new athletic director, Mr. Hamill's leadership. And we're sharing district athletic offerings with elementary students, going down and showing our kids what they can do when they become big Spartans someday. Some of them not having access to all the sports that we offer, and hoping to engage them at a young age to get excited to become a big Spartan someday. For our second goal, with rigorous instruction, we've established common data-driven protocols and monitoring systems to allow us to know each student well. We're aligning MTSS best practices and exploring digital platforms to support the use of data to streamline interventions, our progress monitoring, and communication with our community and staff. We're providing opportunities for staff to collaborate and share examples of rigorous instruction, whether it's in a faculty meeting, a department meeting, or grade level meeting. We're using iReady as an instructional tool to engage in data-driven protocols that maximize student growth, while empowering our teachers to better support the varying abilities of students learning to read. Our data-driven practices have come a long way under Mr. Olin's leadership, working collaboratively with our district and building leadership to enhance the use of data throughout the district to inform our decisions and enhance instruction for each student. We're providing teachers and staff with upgraded student informational systems to allow detailed data-driven reports to guide instruction. They know their kids better than ever before with the data we're able to get now. And with converting school tools to the cloud, it allows our staff to dive deeper into student data to inform their everyday instruction. As far as academic achievement, we're engaging teachers in learning about equitable grading practices through book study and ongoing professional development, and working collaboratively to review multiple literacy programs to serve as the foundation for our literacy program moving forward. And helping our student athletes navigate the application, admission, and recruiting process for college. It started with Dr. Irving and now Mr. Hamill taking it on to help our kids know what they have to do in order to be eligible or make themselves eligible to be considered for college athletics. So with that, are there any questions about our goals thus far?
Any questions?
Any answers?
No.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
That moves us forward to our finance, facilities, and audit update.
Good evening, Superintendent Daly, President Coffey, Vice President Richards, Board of Education, thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to be doing two things. One is the Finance and Facility Audit Committee meeting minutes and also a quick budget update. So we'll start with the Finance and Facility Audit Committee update. We started by talking about audit and the internal claims audit, where our district treasurer reviewed the internal claims audit report for the second quarter with the committee, noting that there were no findings, which is good news for the district. In terms of finance, we talked about the state aid proposal shared by the governor, and aid projections, as well as the reasoning behind the changes in aid for the current year. We talked a little bit about pilots and the fact that some pilot agreements would be ending in this year. So this is the last year, which is back in September, we received taxes via last year that some of those pilots would be in effect, and we'll talk about that in the budget update very soon. We talked about the tax cap and the impact of these pilot agreements ending. We talked about expenditures and the status of the building and department meetings for the new budget year. We also talked about facilities. We talked about the current project and how bid results came in. As you know, the board approved those bids at the last board meeting. In addition, we talked about prospective capital projects and communicated the list of priorities that were being collected and reviewed by the district for the next capital project. We also talked about some work that may happen in the high school basement and the possibility of utilizing additional space down below the fitness room for storage, which is the old pool area. And then the meeting adjourned. Are there any questions about the Finance and Facility Audit Committee meeting?
Any questions? No.
Okay, now on to the budget update. All right, so quick agenda here. We're going to talk a little bit about federal funds. We are required annually to do a report on pandemic relief funds, and so we'll share some information on that in an update. We'll also talk about some revenue estimates, vote propositions, board elections, and next steps. So from a federal funding perspective, these are our grant areas where we've received funds. The CARISA funds, the coronavirus recovery and relief. I can't talk apparently. Those funds had to be spent by September 30th of 2023. And so we have spent those funds, we have claimed them, they've all been funded, we've received the funds. The American Recovery Plan funds, those are approved and we're currently spending them. Those funds have to be spent by the end of September in this year, 2024. And then after that, we're through all of those funds. In addition, we have received about half of our FEMA fund claim. We're still waiting on the feds to approve the second half of that claim, which is quite a process. And so District Treasurer Sally Sanford has been doing a fantastic job of staying on top of that. Our plans are posted to that website. That's just one thing that we need to share out. And so if you have any questions about the funding itself, that's where you would go. Now, the big update is that as was shared via the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, that we had some HVAC units that go on the top of our buildings. And we had planned on replacing them in a couple of locations throughout the district. And so we still plan to do that. And the idea there and the reason why they're part of the pandemic funds is one of the purposes of the funds is to be able to improve air quality to reduce the transmission of airborne pathogens. And so we had some of those funds set aside as part of our CARISA approval, but those funds have expired. And so the lead time on those units and the approval process to get it through state aid was so long that although we had our order in, we didn't get those units in on time. Lead time was over 40 weeks on those units alone. And so what we did is some flip-flopping between funds. So we pulled some funds out of the ARP fund, some of the set-aside money out of the ARP funds, which was set aside for classroom furniture. The reason why they provided for classroom furniture is to more appropriately address distancing, because for years districts were creating more collaborative desk spaces, and now the federal government has recommended that you kind of have the option at least to separate desks, and so we purchased some furniture for the high school and middle school. Originally planned in the ARP funds, we ended up buying them out of the Carissa funds, and now we're gonna buy those rooftop units out of the ARP funds. And so as part of that process, what we're required to do is get community and public feedback on the plan. And so we're gonna post for a couple of weeks, about 2.5 weeks, a survey that has one question. It outlines what I just shared with you and has one question. Do you agree that we should be spending our money in this fund? It was already planned, we're just moving it into the other fund. Do you agree that we should be spending it on improving air quality and reducing the transmission of airborne pathogens in our classrooms? And so that has to be posted for a little over a week and a half. And we are asking people to go to the website there and click the link and answer that question so that we can check that box and keep moving forward with our plan to have those installed before September 30th of this year. Are there any questions about that? Okay. Revenue estimates. This is our current year revenue breakdown. As you see, the majority of our funds come through property taxes, and then the second category is state aid. Those are our two main categories, and where the majority of our funding comes from. We have very limited options for revenue. Obviously, we're not a business, so we don't sell anything, and we really depend on those top two buckets, and then everything else kind of funnels down after that. That's our adopted state aid number. I will say that we are on track and in good shape, but we are going to receive less state aid than was originally budgeted because of some changes in our student data specifically. And so now that our student data is in place, they're running their calculations, we're going to receive less aid than we originally planned. So now I'm going to move on to Governor Hochul and her executive proposal. This was released on January 16th. Overall, across the state, it's an increase of 825 million. And so there are some concerns across the state, as Mr. Moscato mentioned earlier, relating to this hold harmless scenario where some districts who when you run the formula, they're not going to get what they had gotten before. And so the state, for the first time in many years, has determined that they're going to run the foundation aid formula based on all kinds of demographics and information, and they're going to pay people based on that legally funded formula. In the past, if that meant that, like, let's say your enrollment dropped by 10%, you would receive less aid. In the past, they've been holding you at what your amount was in the prior year as your base. So you may get a $0 increase, even if you had a significant change in population and demographics. So this year they're saying we're going to run the formula. The governor has said that they're going to run the formula. And so what that means for about 50% of districts in the state is they're seeing a reduction in aid on their aid runs. And so for us, our demographics have been such that we actually see an increase in aid when you run the formula. Because our needs have increased, our ELL population, our students with disabilities, we've had some increases in those areas. So we are seeing an increase in aid as associated with that specifically. So for us, we're not in that hold harmless group. And so the only concern moving forward is that if they decide to make whole those hold harmless districts, this is a political issue now. The formula is political in general. If they make those districts whole, then all of that funding, additional funding that may come through the legislative process, will go to those districts who maybe don't necessarily need the funds. So, that is a concern and something that we'll be talking about more through legislative conversations. In terms of the governor's proposal, these are the state aid numbers. As you can see, budget to budget, our foundation aid is actually decreasing, but if you look at that right corrected number, our aid is going up based on the runs by over $1 million. But because we had to do that right correction, that's our budget in the 23-24 column, it's actually a decrease in foundation aid budget to budget. Overall, based on the governor's proposal, $116,000 increase, with the majority of that increase being in transportation aid. We've had increased transportation costs. We've been doing things with buses and electrification, which We get aid back on, so that has benefited us. And then BOCES aid, because again, we've been working over the last few years to push as many of our expenses through BOCES as we can, because we know that when we do that, we get aid back on those expenses. So we've been working really hard in those two areas. And one thing I will point out is that the aid number for building on the runs is not the aid number we're anticipating. So after February 15th, we get updated snapshots on building aid. So we're not quite there yet. We got a little bit of time. Is that once you factor in what we actually anticipate for aid, which is $8.3 million versus the 8.1 on the governor's run, we anticipate a total estimate of about $350,000 in aid. One thing I'll share, final notes, is that there is a significant amount of uncertainty about where the state's going to go, because the division of government in the state, the governor has put out this proposal. There's a lot of controversy surrounding it. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen, if we're going to be up, if we're going to be down. There's a lot of shakeout that's going to happen between now and early April. Hopefully we will get an on-time budget, but there's some conversation about not getting an on-time budget. On-time budget is April 1st. So again, those are some final thoughts on state aid. Any questions on state aid? The other big thing to go over is some breaking news, is that we're having a significant reduction in our pilot payments. And so right now in our budget, we have about $2.6 million in pilot payments. We're anticipating a significant decrease because these properties in Chi-Li, specifically the town of Chi-Li, they're no longer going to have a payment in lieu of taxes, which is an agreement between Comida, or Imagine Monroe as it used to be called, but I think it's back to Comida, between the Industrial Development Agency and these entities to have tax abatement. That's what a pilot is. And so their assessments are not on the tax roll, and they pay a separate payment to the district. So they're not included when we send out a tax bill, and it's $24 per thousand, which is, we're just a little over that. When we send out those tax bills, they don't get a tax bill like that. They just get a pilot bill, because that's been negotiated with Comida to attract those businesses to be in Monroe County. And so just pointing out that their pilot is no longer in place, and so they're not going to be, their properties are now going to come back onto the tax roll, and we're not going to get that pilot payment anymore. So instead, we're going to collect those funds through taxation. So this is where it gets a little complex, is that this does impact our tax cap calculation specifically. It doesn't mean that our taxes are going to go up. So what we're going to see this year, significantly, what we're going to see this year is that these properties are going to come back onto the rolls. They're worth about $62 million. So there's some pretty, high value properties. We have to take that difference that we were collecting through the pilots and now bring it onto the tax rolls, or our tax levy, I should say. So then we can then collect it by taxing those properties. And so it's a little bit complex, but we wanted to try something. Let us know if it works, if it doesn't work, if it makes sense, is to think about it in terms of pizzas. We're buying pizzas for our students. This year, this is how much we're buying. This is the tax levy paid by district homeowners. When you think about next year, it's going to go up, what we need to collect. However, the tax levy paid by district homeowners is only going up a couple of pizza boxes. When you think about the total that we need to collect now to close that gap of what the pilots were, it's going to be collected primarily from those businesses that came off the tax roll. So we're increasing the number of pizza boxes we're collecting to cover that lost pilot payment, but the majority of it's going to be those pizzas. The majority of those pizzas are not going to be paid for by local taxpayers. They're going to be paid for by those two corporations. Does that make sense? It's a little complex. So why now? Because this year it's going to be important for us to focus more on the tax rate than on the tax levy increase. Because again, we're probably going to be in like the 4.5% to 5% range on tax levy, but that's us adding in the levy that's going to be assigned to those two entities, Wegmans and Pontarelli. So we're adding that into the levy because it's going up there. We don't have the pilot payment anymore. So the majority of it is going, we're collecting it from them. And so the tax rate percentage will be much lower than the tax levy percentage increase. Does that make sense? Okay. So where you might be collecting like 5% in tax levy, the tax rate might go up 2% for the normal increase that we see. So we'll be working really hard to communicate that in the next coming months. So this is just some information. Again, the tax levy limit calculation is due March 1st. These are our other revenues that we collect. And most of it we're seeing is stable. One thing that we saw an increase in this year was our interest earnings. We're going to try and be conservative because, again, we don't know how the market is going to trend next year. The one thing to note is that if we have a revenue gap, we look to fund it with reserves and appropriated fund balance. We're going to continue to be thinking about this as we move into next year. When we had that slight state aid adjustment, and this year we used some of that appropriated fund balance to help balance our budget. In terms of vote, does anybody have any questions about that? Just want to do a quick. Did the pieces work? It did? Okay. Good. Vote propositions. Really only two that we're talking about right now. The budget approval and the bus purchase proposition. We don't currently have anything else that we're talking about, but over the next few months, that may be the case. And then Board of Education election, there's three year terms, and those are the expiring seats. And then we have 1 2-year term going through June 30th, 2026. Petitions will be available in late March or early April. That's where we're trending for elections this year. Next steps. We're going to continue collecting information for the tax cap calculation. We're waiting those final state aid allocations, which again won't come until April likely. And then we're still collaborating with district-wide staff to generate and refine the proposal. This is our calendar as was adopted by the Board of Education. The big culminating date obviously is May 21st. With any questions, please email that link. And any other questions, any final questions?
Any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us forward to the consensus items. Can I have a motion to approve the consensus agenda? Have a motion, please. Ms. Davis, Dr. Richards. Any questions or discussion?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
I'd like to bring up letter H for approval of employment agreement. I just want to have this conversation in public because this is something that we have had a lengthy conversation in our other meetings with board members. And I think it's important for public knowledge to understand what the additional duties are of this job and where the long-term path that we're going for this.
Okay.
So from our understanding, this individual will be added responsibilities to kind of take on some tasks and duties that need to be done that would be otherwise designated to a security supervisor position. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we do take the safety and security of our students very seriously in the district, and we do recognize as a board that we need to have that level of expertise into our building, into our district. And I know that the plan, as discussed, is that that will be posted to be hired in a permanent position, that this is just somebody to get us through that time so we can achieve some of the goals that we have in our immediate future. Did I sum that up appropriately? Okay. Anyone else have any?
I appreciate that discussion point. Anything else? Thank you so much. So we have a motion to approve it. Did I take a motion already? Yes. Okay, thank you. So making sure. All in favor? The vote is unanimous. Can I have a motion to approve consensus items C through L? Can I have a motion, please? Dr. Richards, Ms. Davis, thanks guys. Any more discussion or questions? All in favor? The vote is unanimous. That moves us forward to action items. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, having heard an appeal from student A discipline determination made by the superintendent of schools, designated as appeal number 1, and following due deliberation, hereby uphold the determination of the superintendent of schools. And I have a motion to approve. Mr. Long, second. Ms. Kais, any discussion? All in favor? The vote is unanimous. Be it resolved that the Board of Education appoints the law firm of Bond, Schoenig and King, PLLC, as legal counsel, effective immediately. Can I have a motion? Dr. Richards, second. Ms. Davis, any discussion? All in favor? The vote is unanimous. That moves us on to superintendent comments.
First, a reminder that our family communication and satisfaction survey is now open. Families received the survey via email last week. That survey is open until February 15th. It will help provide feedback and information on topics including communication, technology, school operations, and more. You may remember data from prior surveys help inform our decision about unifying K-12 communication in the 24-25 school year. Next, some reminders for families of students in the Gates-Chiley classes of 2037 and 2038. Kindergarten registration, yeah, that's scary. Kindergarten registration is now open for the 24-25 school year. Families with students who are turning 5 years old by December 1st, 2024 can go to gateschiley.org/kindergarten to begin the registration process. Meanwhile, the lottery application for our UPK students will be available on Monday. It's Gates-Chiley's 10th year hosting this program. Please note that students who are age eligible for kindergarten are not eligible for this program. Go to gateschiley.org/UPK for more information. Today was an exciting day at our middle school. Gates Middle School teacher, Dorothy Bernice, became the latest grade educator in Gates-Chiley to win a Golden Apple Award. What was neat was her sister nominated. The kids were all thrilled because the Eclipse ambassadors surprised her, and our science teacher and outdoor club advisor with the award today with the help of WROC TV Channel 8. That story is expected to air in the next couple of weeks. We'll share it on our district homepage when it's available. For those of you that love spelling bingo, Disney had bingo last Friday night. It was a huge success. They had more than 450 people attend the event. They made $3,200 profit, which will go a long way towards supporting grade level field trips this spring for our Dragons. Next on to some fun student engagement. Hundreds of secondary students had the chance to go to the Auditorium Theater last week to see Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations. After studying themes from the show in their English, music, and humanities courses, students boarded buses for a night at the theater. High school musical students also had the opportunity to do a vocal workshop with one of the actors. And speaking of phenomenal music, get in the swing of things at our Java Jazz fundraiser concert this Friday, February 9th at 6 p.m. in the Gates-Chiley Performing Arts Center. Proceeds support the jazz band trip to Nashville. Don't miss the rhythm. Get your tickets at the door or in advance at the high school music office. Earlier this year, 4 high school Spartans took part in a New York State Education Department webinar series called Elevating Student Voice. NICE had let us know last week that the recording of the September 27th webinar is now available and online. We'll share that link on the district homepage. We're real excited that at our next board meeting, just prior to it, we'll have a groundbreaking for a capital project. We'll officially break down on phase 1 of our capital project. It's now approved by NICE and bids have been awarded. And that means crews will get to work very soon here at the high school. Work on the middle school will begin later this spring. Last Saturday, I wanted to thank Mrs. Coffey, Mrs. Serbanovsky, Mr. Moscato for attending the MCSBA legislative breakfast at the East Side Country Club. It was great to meet our state representatives and advocate on behalf of our district. What was unique this year is they had student representatives from some of the districts present on key points to our elected representatives, and it was really powerful. And then some sad news, our Monroe 2 BOE superintendent is going to be retiring. Mrs. Joanne Antonacci announced last week that she'll be retiring this summer. There will be some big shoes to fill there. We will be honoring her later this spring with a GC Pride Award to thank her for all she's done for Gates Child. And last, you're going to be, if you're going to be spending the upcoming February break cleaning and organizing, don't miss out on an opportunity to contribute to Neil Armstrong's shoe donation fundraiser. From now until April 4th, the Armstrong PTO will be collecting gently used and new shoes to be donated to countries in need. You can drop off your shoes at either the designated drop box located at Neil Armstrong or at the main entrance to the administration building. I'm sure you can afford to donate.
Oh.
Not as good as pizzas, huh? All right, that's right. That is my report, ma'am.
Thank you. Can I now have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Dr. Richards, Ms. Jennings, you're participating over there. I love it. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? We're gonna just say thank you. All in favor, the vote is unanimous. Have a good night. Thank you.
You don't want to leave her?